Hey, what's up, y'all? It's D, about to react to this vid by Blackie Speaks. It's titled, David's Disturbing Text Messages Revealed. I have seen some of the text messages, okay, or heard them from people who were in court, and they are definitely disturbing, pretty disgusting as well. So we're going to see what he discloses, and I will fill in the gaps, okay, because I heard a lot, and I was like, oh my God, it's horrible. But let's hear what he has to say. Let's watch.
Now, the private messages revealed in the David spelled d4vd case just gave us the clearest look yet at what was really going on between him and Celeste, because these were not just random conversations between him and Celeste. According to LAPD detective Corey Farrell, the messages show that Celeste became pregnant when she was only 13 years old, underwent an abortion.
And he was 18, and it wasn't just once, it was multiple times, okay? He got her pregnant multiple times because they were back and forth talking about how, okay, let's be more careful this time. And he like, all right, this is the last time. We're going to have to go through this. Like, it was crazy. And she was clearly heartbroken over it, you know, about having to get these abortions and killing her child. She was saying that, like, we keep killing these babies. So it was crazy. The fact that she was 13 and he was 18 going on 19 is sick. And he met her, start talking to her online when she was 11 years old.
And continued discussing that pregnancy with David for months afterward. The court heard conversations about pregnancy scares, contraception, keeping their relationship secret, and the intense regret Celeste later expressed over the abortion. But the messages become even more significant when you look at the prosecution's theory of the case. Prosecutors, of course, allege that Celeste eventually threatened to expose that relationship and the alleged abuse, and that David had millions of dollars, his career, and potentially his freedom to lose if that information became public. Now that remains the
Okay, I didn't know she threatened him. All right, I haven't seen all the, details of this case, but I've been like popping in here and there, in and out. But I didn't know that she eventually threatened him.
Prosecution's allegation. David has pleaded not guilty, and the defense had not yet cross-examined Detective Farrell about these messages when court ended for the day. But what we found out gave the public its clearest and most disturbing look yet at what prosecutors say what was happening between David and Celeste behind closed doors. So in this video, we're getting an actual look inside David's private messages and communication with Celeste. We're going through what they said about the pregnancy, the abortion, the secrecy surrounding their relationship, and the messages prosecutors believe may help explain a possible motive for her death. According to LAPD testimony, the conversations between David and Celeste indicated that Celeste became pregnant when she was just 13 years old, identified David as the father, and later discussed an abortion with him. The court also heard descriptions of child sexual abuse material investigators allegedly recovered from David's phone. But more specifically, prosecutors...
Oh yeah, because they were even in discussion about how they were making a lot of videos, okay, and taking pictures. So that's what they found in his phone, was videos of him and her together.
Presented a series of text messages between David and Celeste discussing an abortion she said she had in January 2024. At the time, Celeste was only 13 years old, while David was 18 and would turn 19 in March of that year. The explicit messages were recovered from an iPhone seized during a search of David's Los Angeles home, while the text message conversations were obtained from his iCloud account. Investigators described finding a large connection of CSAM material allegedly involving Celeste, and prosecutors believe this evidence may help explain the motive.
What is that? I'm pretty sure it's CP, but that's the only abbreviation that I know. I've never heard of CSAM.
In the killing, they allege that Celeste had threatened to expose the relationship.
Child sexual assault material? Is that what that means?
And the alleged abuse, and that David killed her on April 23rd, 2025. Before that information could become public, prosecutors further claimed that he later dismembered her body with a chainsaw inside the garage of his home. David, whose legal name is David Anthony Burke, has denied the allegations and pleaded not guilty. Detective Corey Farrell then laid everything out for the court. Farrell, the prosecution's final witness at the preliminary hearing, read the messages out loud and described...
I would credit my powers, but it's very easy to determine, so I won't.
More than 36 explicit images that he said documented David's alleged essay of Celeste when she was just 13 and 14 years old. Prosecutors said the images showed sexual acts taking place inside David's home, but they were considered too graphic to display publicly.
He also kidnapped her, okay? So people are so quick to keep blaming the parents, but if you look at the details of their conversations, He basically was speaking to her about this plan they had to swoop her up in the middle of the night with his security, okay? Like, oh, they called it Operation Fun or Awesome, Operation Awesome or something like that. And basically it included him pulling up to her house. I don't have all the details, so don't quote me on this exactly. But the gist of it, I'm gonna give you the gist of it, okay? I'm mainly right. Or I might be off in a few details here and there. But basically, he was pulling up to her house to grab her in the middle of the night, and then they, ride off into the sunset to his house. Okay? The parents don't know where she at. And they even took her phone from her at one point because I think they found out that she was talking to him. And then he gave her a new phone so that they could communicate. He paid somebody, another kid, to give her the phone. So he was like working around, the parents. And obviously they could have called the police. I'm not sure if they did. But, you could argue that they could have did more. But to act like, oh, they didn't care at all, I think is unfair. Because, when you looking at some of the details, they clearly did care.
In court, which says a lot. Farrell also testified that one screenshot recovered from David's phone showed that his lock screen at one point was a photograph.
Also, sorry, I'm just remembering stuff, and I don't feel like he's gonna cover everything. Also, the mom was in her room, Celeste's room, with her like overnight, so she couldn't leave. They also talked about that. So the mom was literally like, okay, you sneaking out. I'm about to go in your room with you. She slept with her in her room. Like, no, you can't leave. So once again, to act like the parents just didn't give a fuck and was like, girl, do what you want. We don't care, is unfair because that's not the case. And again, you can argue that, oh, well, they should have did more. They could have called the police. They could have da-da-da. You could say could have, would have, should have all day. Cool. But I mean, they've already lost their fucking daughter. Like, what more do you want from them? Goddamn. So I don't like how people are like putting the blame on them, heavily as well. He should be receiving all the blame, in my opinion. And once again, they could have been better parents, but our parents could have did better shit. Let's talk about it. These people aren't fucking perfect. Parents aren't perfect. They don't always do the right thing. They make stupid decisions just like anybody else. They're fucking human. So yeah, once again, I don't think that's fair. Once I started, because at first I was saying that too. Let's be clear. I was like, oh, fuck these parents. They ain't shit. Like, why they ain't protect this little girl? But once I start like seeing more details, I'm like, oh, okay, like, they did try to a certain degree.
It's less embracing. While both.
You also have to keep in mind, and this is no shade, I don't want to be disrespectful at all, and I'm not saying this is the case for everybody, but from my experience being around certain, maybe I shouldn't say this because it's going to come across bad. In the Hispanic community, this isn't as taboo. Like a 13-year-old with an 18-year-old isn't as taboo as I feel like it would be in other communities. Like I would say in comparison to the black community. In the black community, we like, oh, you pedo, this is disgusting. We are real dramatic when it comes to that, as we should be. But why my fucking thermostat ain't coming on? Sorry. But I have seen many, many situations, okay? I live in LA. There's a lot of Hispanics here. Where that is like kind of, I don't want to say the norm per se, but it's not as heavily frowned upon. Once again, this is not every fucking Hispanic person in the world. Hello. I'm just saying what I have seen being around. There are majority Hispanics here in LA. And that is not as taboo as it is in, I would say, the black community, for example. That's the only thing I could compare it to.
Were naked from the waist up. Other photographs shown in court also revealed that Celeste had David tattooed in red ink.
So the reason why I brought that up is because I'm like, maybe that's why they didn't call the police, because it's kind of like, okay, we don't like this, but it's like maybe in their head they were thinking that, okay, it's not extreme enough for us to have to call the police over to get this kid locked up, because people do think of an 18-year-old as a kid, a lot of older people. So maybe that's how they felt. So maybe they were those specific type of Hispanics. That's my point. That's why I brought that up.
On one of her fingers. And that detail is especially disturbing because it was one of the fingers later found amputated from her body. And during Farrell's description of one image that allegedly showed David penetrating Celeste, her mother, Mercedes Martinez, began crying in the courtroom. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, one of the prosecutors in the case, walked over to comfort her and told her, "I really think this is stuff you don't need to hear. I just think it's too much." Celeste's mother, Mercedes, then stood up and left the courtroom in tears,
At
with Celeste's
13?
father,
My
Jesus
God.
Rivas, walking out alongside her. Now the message
I didn't even lose my virginity till I was 16, and I mean, looking back, I thought that was early, but 13, I can't fucking imagine. And by this grown-ass man, like, that's so sick. What do you see in a child?
prosecutors presented stretched from November 2023.
At 18, you couldn't tell me I wasn't grown. I would never have, like, looked at a child like that. Like, a child?
To April 2025. And throughout those conversations, Celeste repeatedly told David that she was afraid she might be pregnant. The earliest messages shown in court came from late November 2023, right around the same period prosecutors alleged the asexual relationship between them first began. Celeste wrote that she was basically praying for her period to come because she refused to have children. David allegedly responded by asking whether she had missed the date she was expecting it. He then urged her to begin tracking her menstrual cycle through an app, writing, "I just need to make sure you're on top of your shit." Now, at this point, Celeste was only 13 years old, yet the two of them were allegedly discussing missed periods, pregnancy scares, and closely monitoring when her cycle was supposed to begin. And then the situation expanded beyond just David and Celeste. According to Detective Farrell, Celeste underwent an abortion in early January 2024. In the days leading up to the abortion, she allegedly texted David that neither of them were capable of taking care of a child. David allegedly responded by telling her, "You are so much stronger than me, baby," before adding, "I love you." He then mentioned advice he said he had received from his mother. David allegedly explained that his mother had advised him to question paternity. In other words, to make sure the baby was actually...
Let's be clear. This lady, she's not one of those black people that I reference. All right? She's just not. And I mean, I guess if you really think about it, you can't really bring race into the equation anyway, because there are some black people who are, you know, they think that shit is normal, and there are others who are like, no, this is, you know, a PDF, this is horrible. And same with Hispanics. There are some that are like, okay, well, this is more acceptable, and others who are dead set against it. So, you know, I don't want to make it seem like I'm trying to act like all Hispanics or even most Hispanics operate like that. Once again, I keep thinking about what I have seen here, and my vision is just clouded by that. But ultimately, that's just my limited experience. I can't make that blanket statement at all, and I'm not trying to. But she's clearly one of the black people who think that this is cool, because from the text messages and whatnot, he said that his mom just basically told him, like, oh, make sure a girl, if a girl gets pregnant, make sure it's yours, or ask that it's yours, or something like that, something stupid. And then she knew about the two of them, but because that's what it's implied in the text messages, but he doesn't specifically state that she knows that Celeste is young, though. So you could argue that maybe the mom didn't know. Maybe she never even laid eyes on Celeste, but she just heard about her, you know, and he could have easily lied and said that she was around his age. So we don't really know, but yeah.
If he ever found himself in a situation like this, he then asked Celeste directly, "It is mine, right?" ? Celeste replied, "Of course it's yours, David." Farrell then read messages about a plan the two had created just 1 month after the abortion, and that plan was called Operation Awesome. According to the text, the plan was for Celeste to leave home and move in with David. When she said she did not know what to bring, he allegedly replied, "We've been over this for weeks."
No, he's not explaining this right. No shade. But it wasn't like, oh, just to come live with me. It was to go basically kidnap her from her house. Okay, because her parents, they were not fucking with their dynamic. They wasn't fucking with their relationship. So it's like, yes, I'm coming in the night with my security guard, and we're gonna swoop you up. That's what it was. It wasn't like, oh, just come on, come live with me.
Before telling her to pack anything, she used that he could.
That's why they're calling it Operation Awesome, like it's some fucking secret operative, situation. Like, that's why it wasn't just coming to live with her.
That immediately replaced her clothes.
They need to add kidnapping to the equation too.
Shoes. He said he would
to
bring
his
her
charges.
2 duffel bags, and later texted that he was coming to pick her up in Lake Elsinore, where she was from. Then on February 13, David allegedly asked whether he should hide somewhere near her house and have his bodyguard bring her out to his car. Celeste responded, "Oh my God, no. That's so embarrassing, dude. So this was not just a vague conversation about living together someday.
But he did come swoop her though, because the parents, they didn't want them together, so they did it in a very sneaky manner. And since he's the adult, like, yeah, this is kidnapping.
They had allegedly spent weeks planning exactly how she would leave home, what she would pack, and how David would get her into his car without drawing attention. David allegedly replied, "Baby, this is the most important day of your life next to your wedding day, and you're worried about being embarrassed?" So David was, in other words, just next to your
Oh, it says the parents first reported her missing 2 days later.
wedding day, and you're worried about being embarrassed? So David was, in other words, describing Celeste leaving her home as one of the most important days of her life, second only to their future wedding. 2 days later, Celeste was reported missing. 14 months later, she was dead. And according to Detective Farrell, their communication went back even further than the pregnancy. He testified that David had been messaging Celeste as far back as 2022, when she would have been only 11 years old. The messages prosecutors presented were often sexually explicit and at times controlling. Now, as far as the messages that Celeste was sending, Celeste's messages could be affectionate, but they also showed moments where she appeared distressed and emotionally overwhelmed. Then on June 11, 2024, David allegedly wrote that he could not wait for them to move in together without the cops bitching. He told Celeste he would take her out every day, and she replied that she missed him deeply. But only a few hours later, the conversation took an even darker turn. David allegedly told her that he wanted to gather her personal documents so they could leave the country and get married in Italy. So this was no longer just talk about seeing each other in secret. According to the messages, he was allegedly discussing a future where Celeste would leave her life behind, move in with him, leave the country, and eventually get married in Italy. Soon after that, Celeste became afraid that she might be pregnant again. She wrote, "I don't like this," before asking David, what if the first abortion didn't work? David allegedly brushed off the concern, telling her that she would already have a baby bump, and pointing out that she had experienced multiple periods since then. He then wrote, "Nah, first baby gone." Celeste's messages indicated that she was anxious, that the abortion might have not worked, and David's alleged response was dismissive. Instead of taking her fear seriously, he mocked the possibility, treated her concern as unreasonable, and then reduced the pregnancy to the cold statement, "Nah, first baby gone." The entire response shifted attention away from what Celeste was feeling and treated a deeply serious situation as if her anxiety was ridiculous. Then on June 19, Celeste allegedly told David that she would come see him and sleep over, but she added one clear condition: just do not get me pregnant. David allegedly replied that they had done a good job avoiding another pregnancy and claimed the first and only time it happened was because of a damaged condom in December. Now, around that same time, another message revealed that David's mother knew him and Celeste were having sex. When Celeste asked whether his mother knew, David allegedly replied that she believed sex was probably the first thing they would do when they saw each other. And that detail matters because it suggests their sexual relationship was not completely hidden from the people around him. At least according to David's own message, his mother understood that him and Celeste were having sex, and Celeste was still only 13 years old at the time. But a little more than a week later, another message showed an even more disturbing side of their dynamic. On June 27, Celeste told him that after they last had sex, she had to run to the bathroom because she was in pain. Instead of showing concern, David allegedly argued with her about whether it had actually hurt. He replied, "No," then claimed he remembered every time she had said "ow" during sex, and insisted that she had not said it once the last time. And this exchange shows the kind of control prosecutors say David had over Celeste. Rather than listening to Celeste describe what happened to her own body, he allegedly dismissed her pain and tried to tell her that her own memory of the experience was wrong. Then on July 10, Celeste asked him directly, "Does anyone know we even had sex?" David allegedly replied, "Nope, and I would like to keep it that way before we married." He then added that they should get married the following year and make the baby simple. So even while they were discussing marriage and having a child in the future, he was allegedly making it clear that their sexual relationship needed to remain secret. But by August 30 of that year, Celeste's messages had taken a much darker turn. She began sending David a series of emotional messages about the abortion, writing, "Realistically, I care about you. I killed my kid for you," Celeste wrote. In another message presented in court, Celeste described what happened as taking an innocent life of a little baby. So by this point, her messages indicate that the abortion was still weighing heavily on Celeste. She was not simply questioning the decision. She was expressing intense guilt over it. And for someone so young, she was remarkably clear about what she was feeling. She understood that this was something she might carry with her for the rest of her life, and she was able to put that into words. Celeste told David that she would have been there for the child had they continued with the pregnancy, but instead of acknowledging the regret she was expressing, David allegedly told her that keeping the baby would have been selfish. The exchange shows them responding very differently to what happened. Celeste was expressing grief, guilt, and the feeling that she had given something up for him, while David allegedly defended the decision and framed the alternative as selfish. Celeste then wrote, "David, I'm gonna have to lie to people around me, even my kid, for the rest of my life." Celeste told David that she avoided talking about the abortion because it made her extremely upset, adding, "I'd do anything to have it back." And David's alleged response to Celeste was extremely cold. He wrote, "Let's end that here," before adding, "I don't like talking to you when you're upset." When Celeste then asked how he personally felt about the abortion, he said he was saddened by it, but explained that what upset him even more was the way the child had been conceived, outside of marriage and outside of how he had imagined having his first child. Then he ended it by saying, "But I don't dwell on it." And that contrast is hard to ignore. Celeste was describing something that continued to weigh on her deeply, something she said she would do anything to reverse, while David allegedly made it clear that he did not want to sit with her emotions and had already decided not to dwell on what happened. By November 2024, the situation between Celeste and David appeared to be repeatedly breaking down. In one exchange, Celeste reminded David that she had been having sex with him for almost an entire year. David allegedly responded by telling her that she was acting as though this was their first breakup, when according to him, it was already their 8th. So this was not one clean ending. Based on the messages, the situation was already breaking apart. At different points, they were reconnecting, and that same disturbing dynamic was continuing. In an exchange dated back December 20, 2024, David and Celeste gave conflicting accounts of what had happened between them. On December 20, David wrote, "You asked me if I wanted to have sex, and I folded." He then claimed that they stopped. Celeste began crying, and he held her afterward. But Celeste immediately pushed back on that version of events. She replied, "No, I didn't, David," and said they had only made out before she was going to leave. So even there, the two of them were giving completely different accounts of what had just happened.
Seemed like he was
David
gaslighting
originally
her.
framed Celeste as the one who initiated the encounter, while also casting himself as a caring person who held her afterward. But Celeste directly rejected that version, exposing how differently he was trying to present the situation from how she said it actually happened. Then the messages moved even closer to the day prosecutors say Celeste was killed. Farrell testified that they remained in contact and that the alleged sexual abuse was still ongoing approximately 1 month before prosecutors say Celeste was killed. But by March 14, 2025, only 1 month before Celeste was murdered, Celeste appeared to be trying to create distance. She texted David, "We can be friends, but online, I don't want anything to do with you in person anymore if I'm gonna try to move on." That message is significant because Celeste was no longer simply expressing frustration. She was clearly trying to establish a boundary and end the in-person part of their relationship. Detective Farrell also revealed another detail that prosecutors say later became important to the investigation. In a December 2023 message, David allegedly told Celeste that he used the name Travion Davis for all of his packages and everything. That alias would later become significant because prosecutors say purchases connected to the alleged dismemberment of Celeste's body were made under the same name. Another detective testified that David used the alias Travion Davis to order 2 chainsaws from Amazon on May 1st, 2025. Then 3 days later, investigators say he purchased a 3rd chainsaw from Home Depot and had it delivered through Uber Postmates. That 3rd saw was described as a 10-inch Makita, and unlike the other 2, it was never recovered. And those were the main messages revealed during day 4.
Wow, this is such a horrible situation. And obviously we already knew that they had this relationship, but we didn't know the details. So to hear exactly what they were discussing is so disturbing. And to know that she was actually pregnant is wild, that he knocked up a child. And there was speculation that she could have been pregnant, but we didn't have actual confirmation. So to see, their actual text messages and to see how dismissive he was to her feelings after all of that is just so heartbreaking. So I really hope he gets the maximum time available, because what? So I'm sure that they're taking a while with this case and gathering all of the information so that they can throw the book at him and he gets the maximum time, because people are like, oh, hurry up with the case. And I was one of those people like, why is this taking so long? But honestly, it takes a while for them to really have like a solid case. If you rush it, it's easy for a person to get off, or it's easy for them to get less time than they deserve. So I think that's why they're taking their time with this whole situation. But yeah, very disturbing shit. Y'all let me know what y'all think about all this stuff, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Bye.